Hello.
Hi.
And welcome to another edition of StoryWorld Explorers. And today we're exploring the world of Forever Has Fallen.
So, created by Kimon Lycos, Forever Has Fallen is a story world that takes place not into the too distant future, where people are now becoming immortal digitally with a new social media site called Forever Social. And the entire thing, it's a very decentralized storytelling method, which involves a podcast and live chat feeds with characters, where you're trying to discover the reason for a murder plot.
Yeah, right. The murder. Either the main character has been set up on a murder or he's trying to get away with one. We don't know yet.
Right, exactly. It's very interesting. There's a lot of depth to the world, and that's what we really talked about was the questions around being immortal digitally is a huge question in and of itself. But even going down to the great storytelling and the great playing, you're actually involved inside of this story world, an active participant. It's still a very narrative drive, but you can explore as much as you want. And it's absolutely fascinating. It was a great conversation. If you're watching this on YouTube, it's coming right up. Or if you'd like to listen to it instead, you can find those links in the description below. Enjoy the show. All right, cool. Well, welcome back to StoryWorld Explorers. And today we are, I want to say levitating down. What are we doing? We're like descending.
We're descending.
Descending down onto the world of Forever Has Fallen. We have Kimon Lycos here with us, the founder of Forever Has Fallen. Kimon, let's dive right in. Let's talk about Forever Has Fallen. What is it? Who is it? Why is it?
Why? Yeah, I've asked myself that question a few times, like, why? Why am I doing this? So Forever Has Fallen's it's a new type of entertainment experience where we've created a thriller podcast series, and in every episode there's a clue. And that clue leads you into this big story world of online escape rooms and challenges and hidden content and Easter eggs, which are fun and interesting and wonderful to play around with. And you basically have the quest of being a bounty hunter, and your job is to solve challenges and get one step closer to understanding how humanity has lost digital immortality.
Yeah, right. So let's talk a little bit about the entire world itself, because it's an extremely interesting, not too far in the future story world. This isn't like some of the other story worlds we've spoken about, which exist on a different world, right? This is like, it could happen in the next few years. Just right before we started recording this, we were talking about how, there is you were just saying that one guy from Wired, a generalist from Wired, who had made an algorithmic bot to basically answer how his now passed father would, which, is scary to think about, but that's really at the core of this story. Well, it's scary depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, right. I mean, if, the father also was running the country, and he's a deceased man running the country.
Right, then we got some problems.
Maybe it was a little worse, but I mean,
so it's really interesting because this whole, the premise of the world is that this company called Forever Social has been working on creating a digital afterlife. So in some way, shape, or form, you exist. Well, in some way, shape, or form, digitally, you exist past your death day, and can respond to. Right. So you could respond to posts. You post just like you would when you're alive. The only difference is that this is an algorithm. This is a representation of you. And of course, just even saying that can be fraught with a whole bunch of problems and stuff. But let's dive in. Let's talk about what Forever Has Fallen. Where's the premise? Where do we start? How do we get there? When we're talking about this podcast escape room.
Yeah, so the whole premise is that a Swedish technology billionaire called Karl-Axel Mattiasson has made breathtaking advances in quantum computing and algorithms and basically computer science to be able to create real as life digital immortals. So as exacting replicas as you can get, of a human personality, cognitive abilities, memories, considerations, concerns, thoughts, wishes, dreams, hopes, all those kinds of things in a digital format. He arrives to work at late at night one night and to find his best friend is been brutally murdered, and the Forever Engine, which is the core technology behind the Forever Social, has been destroyed. He realizes he's been set up, or has he? And he escapes from the authorities, and you enter this whole story as a bounty hunter to try to work out what is the truth behind, the Forever Social, the demise of millions of digital immortals, and, billions of dollars being evaporated and being wiped out. And the knock-on effect of the whole thing is cataclysmic, because it turns out that the Forever Social was really the glue that was bonding together things like Facebook and YouTube. So there were deals that were done that are a bit murky, and of course, no spoilers, so I won't reveal anything. But we do have a guest appearance by one Mark Zuckerberg. May not be the real Mark Zuckerberg, but by golly, he really did sound like Mark Zuckerberg. And so there's this cascading effect of where we're presenting just how much of our lives are tied up in these digital platforms and social media platforms, and then the knock-on financial catastrophe that happens, and then there's more catastrophes that happen with you as the bounty hunter and the person who's involved. You're actually participating in the story. You're trying to work out, well, what are the connections behind all of these things? So the whole saga is a big, sweeping, global, it's a massive, massive storyline. It goes beyond just the digital immortals, but it's something that brings up a lot of near future topics, such as who will the future president be? Could it be female, for example? Because someone has a heart attack. Don't know who that could be. So stuff like that we bring into it. And we've spent a lot of time to do a lot of research and to make everything as, not to make it feel like it's real, because that'd be a big mistake, but to give it a sense of realism. And it even, got to the point where News Corp, one of the world's largest media companies, actually thought the company, our fake company, the Forever Social, was real. And they did a whole news article and stuff on that, which led to some funny sort of counter punches from some other news agencies as well. So there's a lot of thought that's gone into giving you the ability to participate within the story, and go as deep as you like, and have a really good time while you do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the realism that you're talking about is just that, we have become so attached to social media. We have become, it's become a part of daily lives. I mean, you look at the cell phone from what it was to what it's become now. It's not that big of a leap to assume of digital immortality right on the other side of the door. Like you said, if leaps in quantum computing happen, and it's not that far fetched to all of a sudden the idea of being immortal digitally, which then obviously might lead to immortality physically, isn't that far away. And that's what's really interesting, because it does pose a lot of questions throughout this podcast escape room while you're participating in the entire scenario, trying to figure out what exactly happened to Forever Social and all that other layered stuff that you just went through. It raises some interesting questions, and like a lot of content out there. I mean, you just got to think about, George Orwell with the 1984. I don't know why I always want to say 1987. I'm like, that's not correct. It's 1984. 1984, where you're just kind of, you're just looking at current trends and you're like, that isn't so, that's not so far off, So, and it helps in just as much as looking back on history helps us to not repeat it. through creativity and through, storytellers like ourselves, we can start to raise questions that, hey, we all know this is going to be a future discussion. Doesn't have to be the most realistic, right? Doesn't have to feel like this is happening right now, but we can start to pose that question. And it's actually a lot of fun to get lost in a world like that and going like, well, maybe we keep this, but we're going to definitely get rid of that. And whatever.
And, I also think that a big question here too, it's the, I guess it's like the centralization issue and like the monopoly issue and how much was predicated on this forever social or this forever engine. That all of a sudden now, if it gets destroyed, it loses terabytes of information every second, and all of a sudden you have maybe 40,000 immortals that just get wiped away. Like it's almost like they died a second time.
It was mass extinction.
Right, you died a second time, and there was no way for anyone to know that something was wrong. Like it was like basically like, oh shit, Grandpa died. Grandpa's not here, and I didn't say goodbye to him because when he was going to die, he was going to get put into this forever social. Yeah. And we were having a conversation like yesterday about how he missed eating cereal because I don't know how exactly it works, but now he's gone, and so now that's another big thing. It's like an issue of like, how much power can one company hold? That's a big issue.
You absolutely know it, man.
For that one mistake from them, all of a sudden you get 40,000 people essentially murdered.
Because we don't get preachy. We don't want to be preachy, and I've been very careful, as the writer, not to give any of my own personal preferences or to have my own personal agenda. But it's important that we can raise, and we raise a whole heap of questions, and you absolutely nailed one there on the power question. So, I mean, today we're more than happy to give up a lot of freedoms and to give up a lot of data, and that's a fact. That's not an opinion. It's just a fact. In order to get all these free services, and that we're more than happy to be the product. Now, if you were to extend that into that I have a desire, and we can see this already from how people interact with Instagram and with TikTok, and there's all these different social platforms coming up, which are in essence, if you look at the way that people behave on these platforms, a lot of people seem to be trying to lay down their legacy. Now you imagine, because I'm 51 years of age, and so I haven't been brought up with this stuff, right? Now I can see my kids who are in their early 20s, and they've kind of jumped off that train. They could see where it was going. They're like, no, I don't want to participate anymore, and they're very, very rarely on things like Facebook, Instagram, and so forth. But you can see a lot of people are essentially trying to lay down a legacy for themselves. Now, you imagine doing that from the age of 16 and all the way through to when you're 50 or so, and then suddenly you've got like you've got terminal cancer or something's about to happen. If you've pre-planned for your legacy to live on, and you have the ability to do that, how many people would do that? If it was possible to do it, I just wonder how many people would want that legacy that they've spent decades creating. How many would want that to live on and continue? And then what's the knock-on effect for people who are left behind? And then the ultimate question is, should a company have that power to keep all these people alive? In one of the episodes, Karl-Axel's interviewed on a Swedish talk show, and his whole premise is, why should God have a monopoly? Why should religion have this monopoly on life after death? So he's an avid atheist, and his whole thing is, why should God have this monopoly? Why should we enable some deity or entity that I personally don't believe in, talking as Karl-Axel, why should we allow that? Can't a corporation have this power? And it brings up all these then very interesting questions, and that is, would people be happy to give that kind of power to one company, as we essentially have done with, we've got a duopoly between Google and Facebook at the moment, where a lot of our digital lives exist currently.
Yeah.
Well, I hasten to believe that people will give that up quite readily if it's free. If you sign up here and we own all your thoughts or whatever the hell, a lot of people will just check that box and they will sign them up.
Ironically enough, with Facebook, especially when it was first starting, it was so not blatant exactly what was happening. It was very much you were giving up this stuff, of course, posting pictures and your thoughts and everything on a day-to-day basis. But it wasn't like and now I remember one time that we found out that it's like Facebook was claiming that it owned the copyright to all the photos that were ever on Facebook, which was kind of weird. And we're like, I never even really thought about looking at the terms of use, because like in reality, like it just wasn't what it was. I mean, I got on Facebook when I was in high school, so and obviously at that time, oh boy. Some stuff, like you said, a legacy, maybe not, you wouldn't want to include that stuff, especially in this whole forever social. I'm going to have, so start in 20 this, and don't, before that could all go. But hang on to that. But, so it's really interesting. And what I love about this, right, is instead of this just being a podcast that leads to this entire ecosystem of websites that you can go and visit to find clues, and that you're playing a bounty hunter, you're trying to find out why somebody was killed and why this company was destroyed. Instead of it just being that at a base, here's all this depth that we just went into,
right,
of all this fascinating stuff that would hook somebody to come back for a second season, right? I mean, if it was literally just solve the mystery, it's like, like Clue, it's a fantastic board game to play on a family game night. But really, how often can you play Clue? And the next time they come out with a new Clue, are you like all excited about that board game? It's like, okay, we know what we're trying to do. We don't know who Mr. Body is, and we don't know why we're in his mansion, or there was some, like there was at a dinner party, and all these characters are all just kind of wackadoos, right? But in this case, there's so much more depth that if you decide to participate and become a bounty hunter, the next season, as you discover more, obviously this first season isn't going to end up wrapped up in a bow and given to you like, there you go, you solved the whole thing. Like there's going to be more to learn. There's going to be more to discover. There's going to be more to think about. That's going to hook somebody, and that's really the beauty of a story world in the first place, right? You have this world that's a living, breathing thing that has so much layer to it, and every layer is something that for somebody else to get lost in. So I just wanted to definitely point that out too, because that it's not. Once again, it doesn't come down to the fascinating part about this, especially to me, it doesn't come down to the mechanics of how the story is being told. It's the actual depth of the story that's so amazing to me. And that's what really gets me excited to be like, obviously the next season I'm pre-purchasing it. I could not possibly leave on the note that I left on.
And bundled into all of this is we've been able to create like a global social experiment. So we've promoted the Forever Social as a company. So we've actually given its own marketing campaign. We've been building the brand. We've been attracting people to sign up for the Forever Social. I mean, we wanted to see, would people be interested in the service? And the debates that have raised, I mean, we've had people call radio stations and raise petitions, and there's been arguments and all that sort of stuff that happens on social media where, I think this is terrible, this is horrible. And then people who kind of get that it's not real, tease them a little bit. And then we've interacted with people as the Forever Social and answering their concerns, answering their questions. And just that in itself has been, part of the entertainment experience. Well, certainly for us, with some of the threats we've had, especially from the Christian groups. Not very Christian of them, I must say. And also entertainment for our fans. Where we've got a Discord group, and it's like, hey guys, it's kicking off on Facebook. Here's the thread. Go and check it out. And then the discussions that our fans were able to have, because just like, as you're pointing out with Facebook, we signed up for Facebook because we thought it was going to be a way to be connected and communicate. That's why we signed up for Facebook, right? And then it's turned into this, that we can then create this legacy. And people have taken this step further. But the real purpose of Facebook is, of course, is to sell advertising and to make a shitload of money. So this raises the question then, and this is something that our fans debate and discuss, is, okay, so the Forever Social, its purpose is it's selling to us on you can become a digital immortal. But what's its real purpose? What's it actually out there to achieve? And that's something, of course, I won't and can't discuss. But in itself, there's another mystery and there's another thing to consider. And the debates and discussions that we can have around that is just really, really fascinating. And in that respect, as a storyteller, I'm more than happy just to take my hands off the steering wheel and go, you guys run this. You discuss it, because your opinion matters just as much as mine. And I'm just really fascinated to find out what people think about it.
That's exactly right, Kimon. That's exactly right. I mean, the fact that you guys went out and did, like when you told me this a couple of weeks ago, that you guys had done, and all the debates and the kind of activity of just being like, well, you know what? Here we go. Let's just say that the core of our world, let's say it was real. Let's go ahead and put out a campaign and see how people would actually react to it. Was a brilliant market research marketing strategy, because it legitimately, like you said, it made people mad. I love the thing that Christians aren't being very Christian. You can look around the entire world and there's a whole bunch of Christians that aren't being very Christian about anything. But it's absolutely fantastic, because you have those debates. You come in and, once fists really start to fly and go like, hey, well, this doesn't really exist, but to have your fans, and then also gain fans that way too, of being like, I never really thought about that. And even what you just said there, what's the purpose of Forever Social, the bigger picture?
You know what? I just realized something. The word of mouth advertising is the best advertising. So next time you're having a conversation with your digital grandpa, all of a sudden he starts talking about how great House of Stewart Scotch is.
Oh,
and he's just like, I always have a glass. Do you have any of this? This stuff's really good. This stuff's really good. You should get some. You're just like, oh yeah, Grandpa always would. I mean, hopefully they understand enough about your grandpa to know that he drank House of Stewart's and that. It's like, well, my grandpa was always a Johnny Walker man. And then he's like, I used to be a Johnny Walker man, but I'm telling you, this stuff is so good. This is
crazy, Jack. What did you just do? You just blew my mind. That's how I'm like, now we don't know whether or not this is the actual thing, but this could be one, like you said, with the audience, what they get going, right? Could start to like, maybe that is the reason why. This is because, once again, I mean, you don't have to be a market researcher to know that advertising is having less and less an effect, and then they're jamming it more and more in front of YouTube videos and Facebook and everything, and they're making a shit ton of money, but the results are starting to dip down. So how could you possibly convince an advertiser to continue to advertise and purchase advertising with you? Well, we can get their dead grandfather to recommend your scotch based on the fact that he did drink scotch. And did I ever tell you about the time that I drank House of Stewart? House of Stewart's like the lower of the lowest.
Yeah, right. No, it's not
scotch. It's not a very good scotch. It's kind of an internal joke here.
If you're gonna get shit faced, get shit faced on this.
Yeah, right. Let me tell you. Yeah, I solved a math problem I didn't think I was going to be able to do.
They could warp it into very compelling stories.
Yeah,
It could be, it was only back during the war. It was only me and my lucky strikes.
Yeah, right.
If I wouldn't have gotten through that. I wouldn't have gotten through it. I mean, Lucky Strike isn't allowed to advertise, but maybe they can now.
Oh.
Maybe they can. Maybe it's not really an advertisement. You don't know. It's just a grandfather having a conversation.
It's just part of the story.
Who's to know? We all know that the U.S. Congress really doesn't know what Facebook's doing, so they won't know what the hell Forever Social's doing.
Wasn't that hilarious? You're asking Mark Zuckerberg, so if it's
how do you make money?
How do you make money?
Like, you know what? The
ABC brain was about to go kaboom. Like, how do I?
The TV ad. Yeah, right. You know what?
I basically bought an entire island of Hawaii.
Yeah.
You're asking me how I can make money?
It's like, it's like asking the NBC chairman to come in. How do you guys make money?
Right.
It's like,
we how I have always made money.
We sell advertisements.
Oh, that's crazy.
Just one quick example of how, like, this completely freaked me out, and it shouldn't have, but it did. But I got talking to a friend of mine, and his son is doing architecture. And this lecturer was talking about the Forever Social. And so because my friend's son knows about the project and everything, he just sat there like, holy fuck, this is in the, unprompted. It was just because he saw the Facebook thing and got involved. And from a creator perspective, I'm really excited about where we can take this and where we can explore it, because we've created other things like Sweden's Talking About, for example. So that's a fake talk show. Yeah. And, we've got it out there that people can audition for it, so it's a way that people can contribute and do something and have some fun and put in an audition tape. And there's some other stuff that we've got out there as well, where it's kind of like, one thing we're very, one thing we don't want to contribute to is like fake news and conspiracies and stuff, because we do have some websites out there, like the Olof Palme Association, Olof Palme Foundation.com, which is talking about, a very real instance where a Swedish prime minister got assassinated. Now, I did a Google search or check on this the other day, and it's actually ranking quite high for anyone searching after Olof Palme. And I'm kind of like, what's our responsibility here in terms of being an entertainment business? Because I don't want people to come across this website and start getting wild ideas, because I think there's enough of that shit happening already, don't you?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's an interesting thought of not contributing to the misinformation that's going on, and not even just from a standpoint of, obviously we don't want more. We have enough of it already, and you could attribute the length of this pandemic to a lot of misinformation about a lot of different things. We probably would have already been out of this had people not been getting a whole bunch of just absolute garbage about vaccines and about masks, and America's a whole other story. We won't dive into it, because it sounds crazy, but some of the stuff that's happening is so rooted in America's founding that it's absolutely nuts. But not even just from that, but from other people, from, say, just, the people that are producing the correct news coming after you specifically for perpetuating some sort of false information, and then hurting you as an entertainment company, which is, if you ever want to lose a lot of fans really fast, have them think that you're trying to manipulate media so that, your stuff is ranking and it's causing all this chaos and everything, It's crazy, and it's an interesting question. I think it's an evolving question too. So, what's your responsibility? Because on this website, and so we can kind of dive into the content that you're making, right? You mentioned Sweden is talking about, which I absolutely love. I'm going to spend an entire 10 minutes talking about it. But just the different websites, right? So like when you're in this podcast, you can go to these certain websites. If it's a website that's in the podcast, you can actually go and you can visit that website, right? And it looks like it's a real thing, which is a lot of fun, right? It reminded me a lot of Grand Theft Auto. In Vice City, there were phone numbers that were on the radio all the time. You could call those numbers, and it would be like, a quick, like, leave a message after the beep, but it would be the voice actors for that character, for that business, which was a lot of fun. And as far as I know, they're still active. And that just kind of helps you build out that world that's actually in the real world. So what you're talking about with the assassination, you don't want to have it like this is a part of a game, because that kind of takes you out of it. But then at another point, it's like, How do you make it so that it's so
in
clearly
the-
not real news?
Yeah, so we do have like in this, like with the Olof Palme Foundation .com website, we do have like a couple of little trapdoors in there. So there's one where we've got all these images of different fairy tales and so forth. And it's basically a thing to prove that you're human. And, so the clue, so the question is, who's the fairest of them all? And so you obviously click on, Snow White and bang. And then that opens up a whole bunch of new things, which, aren't apparent on the website. And that's part of the gameplay and part of the challenges that you need to solve. And so we hope, we really hope that when people see this stuff, they go, okay, hang on, there's something else here. There's something else different about this. And then there's some that are like really super obvious, like, we've created a company called No Bath. So it's a medical supply company. You take it so that if you've drunk an enormous amount of alcohol, you won't puke and you can take this No Bath. And then they have this other product called Shit Stop. And of course, the advice is don't take both those things at the same time, or else that could be catastrophe, right? And you'd imagine that people would see that that it's a spoof and it's a bit of a parody and there's some Easter eggs in there and, a bit of a tip to the lid to a couple of cultural icons. I think our biggest, not concern or the thing that we really have to watch is the Forever Social website. Because this is a direct, we've got a little clue on there that if anyone has any understanding about, some military acronyms, they'll get what it means, and that there's obviously something a bit of a joke here. But we had in a few short months, we had like 50,000 people sign up to the Facebook page as a pre-registration to get digital immortality. I'm like, okay, how do we break the news to these people? It's like
That's right. That's so crazy.
Yeah,
right. I mean, and just to even have that type of traction is so amazing. I mean, I think you really have struck on something story-wise that is going to be very widespread because it's very familiar. It doesn't have, to even comprehend what the world is trying to say happened. Right. Yeah. Is something that's like, but they're not working on that, like that kind of stuff, and it's an easy point of entry to kind of get lost in, and even all the way down to the content as it exists right now is so easy to get into as well.
There's also and this goes to the brevity of it's a story world. We can start in different not eras or eras. You got your where your story takes place, you have the future, and then you have a little bit in the past. And I think that also allows you to, because you said in the early part of the podcast, you don't want to put your politics, you want to put your opinions in these things. You want to kind of have it be in the ether, kind of be like, oh yeah, I don't really have an opinion on this. Just I'm gonna play you guys a little bit. We're gonna have some fun. What you come up with, and that's kind of one of the things that coming from a storyteller's background, you talk about all the a series, a book, a movie, all those things. Is you could actually then in a series you have a lot of different personalities and a lot of different characters that they can talk into all these things, and you can kind of build out that world even more so that when people go forward in the podcast, which I'm assuming is kind of present in the world, kind of as far into the future as you can, because your decisions and your actions as the audience are actually impacting some of the story. You could go back and you could kind of explore how did it come about, and you can have your opinions on what you think about monopolies in this sort of field, and you have all these different opinions about people for it, people against it, and what was life right before it took off. What was one of the it had to have been brought up to some Supreme Court somewhere to either get allowed or struck down.
Yeah.
This is a huge battle to even get it on the on top of it. You'd have to assume, right,
Well,
And that
a lot of times though with this kind of stuff, it's very much retroactive. It's just like, wait, what's happening?
Right, and I mean, it could be a little retroactive as well. It's like, can this even be legally allowed to run? We're talking about our little personal ads from Grandpa. Like that's a little immoral. But is that something someone can figure out? It's like, wait, hold on, am I actually getting? Like, at what point do you think I'm getting pitched to by Grandpa who's in this system that was supposed to be totally neutral and unbiased and not try to sell you anything? Then all of a sudden, maybe the fucking shareholders are like, well, we need to bump these numbers up somehow. We're offering it for like, $50 or whatever the hell you charge to get immortal. I think I think at least the price of a funeral, right? Wouldn't that be half the price of the funeral and you're immortal? That could be a good pitch.
And we'll get rid of the body for you too.
Yeah, right. There you go.
No.
But I'm just saying that there's a whole bunch of that's a huge storyline not that it won't get touched on here. But that's already after the aftermath of it getting like this murder mystery, like who, and then it's like who the hell did that? But that's all in the present, and you could really go back and you could really touch on what was society thinking, what brought people to even believe that this, there had to be a bunch of.
Well, I mean, a lot of what you're talking about is already stuff that he's done in real life, but then you would be fictionizing
and
it.
You just exactly, and the whole. I don't know. It's just like there's a lot before this can even happen that is super interesting as well. And I think that we're talking about what different types of content you can make. And I mean, you say you have 50,000 people sign up for the Facebook thing. That I mean, you're like there's something there that you could pitch to any studio, any production house that would be like, yeah, we'll start to develop something. You know what I mean?
So we're touching upon very core, how do I put it? Very core concepts that people are interested in, and core concepts that resound with people. I mean, the thing I like about what we're doing, and I mean, my personal favorite storyteller would have to be, Spielberg, because no matter, I mean, like we could have written a book on this story. We could have done something like really super simple, because a great story is still a great story can be told around a campfire. You don't need gimmicks, you don't need special effects, you don't need like a transmedia world to do it. And we've been very careful around making sure that whatever we do, we're not doing because we can do it, because it's a gimmick. But we're doing it because it enhances a character, it enhances the story, it enhances the total sort of experience. But a lot of the things that you'll find in what we're doing are grounded on just being really good storytellers as well. And as a student of I love Spielberg movies, and I love those kinds of films where you grab people by the balls, within the first 10 seconds, you don't let go. There's alternative strength of squeezing, but in essence, you keep the audience going all the way through. People will find that our storyline and the things that happen are gripping, and there's no sort of like this slow burn. I was watching a TV. I started trying to watch a TV series last night, and I won't mention which one. But you're like, I just looked at my wife, and it's like, what's the point of this? It feels like I'm observing people, and I don't know what the point of this is. I think one of the main comments that we've had about our storyline is that it is gripping, and that it does draw you in, and that every little moment that we've put in there is not a little tickle, but it's a punch. It's like you go, wow, oh my god, oh that's oh. And some of them are shocking crimes, or some of them are shocking revelations of human nature and what people are capable of.
Yeah. And to that fact, I don't think that there was a better place for you to start your story world, and I because if we were talking about, well, what is all, all this website promises you digital immortality. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, it's kind of, but it's still on that really high consciousness. I mean, you guys started with a murder, and there's a hook to that, because then there's like, it's like, oh, what? And then it's like kind of a mystery. It's like, why is this person murdered? And then all of a sudden you start to realize how much bigger the world is, and then you're kind of interested in like, what society would do that, as opposed to starting with a society that did that. I don't know if it would be as impactful if you did it in linear order.
I think,
you know what I mean?
I think that we've experienced that a lot on the podcast, and this is the 7th episode of it. That a lot of these story worlds don't start with the origin story, which. Right. Nobody really cares about an origin story of anything unless they know where it's going to go
or where it came from. What's happening interesting now.
Yeah, so Jack's excitement about going all the way back to what kind of what kind of world, what kind of society, what kind of court system, what the political climate is, or even where this kind of idea would even come from. To actually get this done, what kind of craziness would have to happen for this to get done to the point of the beginning of Forever Has Fallen. That is extremely interesting, only because we know that it does fall. Billion, trillion dollar things get destroyed, people's lives, and so we know that that's where it ends up. And the great part about any transmedia story world is that you will be able to discover, like we said, with the 50,000 people that are on Facebook that kind of signed up thinking that it was an actual thing for digital. Hey, sign up now, right? Is that you'll start to discover exactly where they want to learn more about, right? And that's what's so exciting about it. That's why we love transmedia so much, is because it's not really up to us. You said it yourself. It's like, at some point I'd love to take my hands off the wheel and let the road tell me where to go next, right? You're going to come to a fork where it's like, should we continue to push on to the future? Should we try to reflect backwards? Should we do what was the talk show called? Sweden's talking about. Sweden's talking about. Should we continue to explore that and do like a, where is everybody starting to tingle a little bit on it, to be able to dictate where the story is going to go? And I think that it's absolutely it's great that you're grabbing people by the balls, because you need to. And I think that where it's starting right now, it's just so fascinating on so many levels that it's going to get the people that love the murder mysteries, the Agatha Christie's and the Sherlock Holmes and all those other stuff. You're going to get some of those people, and you're going to get some of the people that just love the idea of what's going to happen in the future. And then you're going to get people like us who are just obsessed with the idea that there's digital immortality. Why is nobody talking about this? This doesn't make any sense to do this.
And honestly, it gives you guys a lot. Well, the concept gives you guys a lot of, it's not going to be nonsense content. It's all going to have that purpose behind it. Yeah. But it is.
And that's a, I think a key differentiator with what we're doing is, because we've spoken to, I guess one point I need to make very quickly is, this is not what I normally do. By day I'm running an advertising agency, and I just, this whole thing just came to me when I was thinking about, Hollywood movies, piracy and things like that. And I was just thinking around, well, you have to change the model somehow. How would you change that model? And then I thought, well, if you created experiences where, when you buy a book, if you wanted to, you could just turn to the back of the page to see how it ends. But you don't do that because you want that experience. You want to go through that story and you want to formulate all those things that a good story gives you. And I was thinking that, if you had some device or something where you stopped people from sort of going to the end of the book like you do with a film when you download it illegally, because you just want to get it now. But if there was something where it was an experience where you're like, well, no, I'm not going to do that to myself. I don't want to reveal the end of the story now because I want to go through a process. What would that process look like? And that's where it came about, where we traditional media stuff where transmitter, I think today is a lot around, we've got a story and then we put that story into other media. What we've done is we've got one story that's told seamlessly throughout all different types of media, from mobile text messages to websites to interacting with characters, with chatbots, and all hidden content. So video content. So there's all these things that you can do and experience, but it's the same story.
Yeah,
it's not being retold in a different way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And in doing this, one of the major things that we worked out was that we were kind of pioneering this method of storytelling, and because we're looking around for rules, what can we do and what can't we do? And we kind of realized we've got to write the rule book on this kind of stuff. But also a bit scary, because it's like, we don't want to fall down a particular rabbit hole. And we have done on a couple of occasions, but with our process and the way that we've been evolving this, we've been able to build this and test this with our community as we've been making it. We've figured out pretty quickly what works and doesn't work, which has been, an absolute godsend, especially when it's like a little startup like this. And we've been able to create this sort of formula for being able to tell this one story across all these different media channels, but to make sure that it all is bound together by one single glue, which is the plot of the story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that was what was really interesting. And Kimon was one of those people that reached out to me on LinkedIn, which I ask everybody if they're interested in what we're talking about with transmedia to do the exact same thing Kimon does, because I do check that often, even though your invitation was waiting for a quick second there. But that aside, when we were talking about what Forever Has Fallen, the actual structure of it right now is the podcast, and then, like you said, you have the chat boxes and you have the website, and it's all displaced, and how that type of storytelling on the glue is the actual plot itself, to get people to think about coming back to that specific story, right? And all that stuff kind of feeds into it. And then whether or not and I remember you're like, have you heard of anybody doing that? I'm like, I haven't heard of anybody or any type of story that, at least recently in my mind, that is that interactive and that type of decentralized. I know you don't like the word interactive, right? So let's use decentralized, because it really is. This story it's all over the place media wise. That's all connected. That you obviously have to go to these different parts if you want the full experience. And the brilliant part about that is that you guys are testing it, which, I mean, if you've listened to this podcast even once, you know that we're a huge proponent of testing everything that you do, and listening to the audience and exactly what they're looking for. But on top of that too, it's decentralized, but what this allows you to do, and from a transmedia standpoint, is to, this world, if people want to explore it further, right, it doesn't have to always follow the exact same plot. It could do, and plot by meaning, you trying to discover what happened to Forever Has Fallen, or to Forever Social and why it fell and everything. It allows you to pivot around in that same world where this definitely happened, to different types of stories that can be told in a variety of different ways, which, to be honest, it sounds like Forever Has Fallen, the next storyline that you do should be not an exact replica, but an exact same thing of a decentralized story, just to have that, because if that's, I could see that as an audience member being like, I love that about Forever Has Fallen, because it is that kind of interactive, right? And if they want to go back in time, like Jack is suggesting, to how this whole thing even came about, do it in a similar way. You could do it as a podcast. You could do it as, whatever, newspaper clippings thing, and the people are going, so long as they're exploring and the story is decentralized surrounding a single plot.
And it's all contained in the same story world as well. I mean, the one thing I've got to be clear is that it's not like a choose your own adventure. I mean, there is that one central spine of a plot. But what we're allowing people to do is to create their own experience within this.
Sure.
If I want to for example, there's a couple of minor characters that come up in the podcast. Now, you can actually go and explore and discover more about those characters if you want to. If you don't,
right,
you're not penalized from the point of view of you're not going to miss any key plot twists or moves. But you're actually able to go, for example, we've got, there's a couple of accountants. They're very, very minor characters. But, you know, we've created a whole persona and their own company and emails, and you can go in and you can get to know these people more, and you can interact with them if you want to. And they're also part of, and this is something we haven't mentioned as well, and sorry if we're running out of time on this, but we've actually made this into gameplay as well. You know, because as you go through each episode, there's these different challenges that you can solve. And in solving those challenges, you get rewards and you get recognition and status as well. So it's been connecting all that stuff together has been, it's been a challenge, but it's a lot of fun. And it's great. I think ultimately the really cool thing is knowing that our fans spend on average 2 hours on each episode. So that tells me that, you know, we've created something that's worth at least 2 hours of people's time.
Yeah, that's great. And what you just mentioned there too, or slightly alluded to, was that there are benefits to getting 100%. Like in video games, this is not uncommon for us of wanting to get 100% on a video game, right? And what you're suggesting is that as you complete these minor challenges, if you go off and try to discover why the accountant said that, or all this other little tiny minor characters, and you fully explore this world, you don't the benefit isn't that you get a fuller, richer story, but this is actually going to carry over, assumingly, to season 2, where you get, you know, an advantage. And this is like a, and we did talk about this, because this is really where I feel like a lot of transmedia needs to start to pivot to, is owning your own data. I know, kind of sketchy, right? Here we are worried about becoming immortal. Now I'm talking about owning our own data. Shh. But having a website hub where you have usernames and you have a reason to continue to come back and log in, whether or not that's because you're paying a monthly fee or because you want to make sure that you keep your goals and your status, and a community hub, like you said, with Discord, where you can come up and you can talk to people about this world and stuff, which blows my mind, because once again, that takes your hand off the wheel, because you're like, where are these people? What are they talking about? Let's just make this next decentralized story around what they're looking for, right? What are the questions that they're asking, and let's go there next. And so that, and it really is, it's like it's that user. I'm getting goosebumps because I get really excited about this stuff. So it's the username, it's the name themselves, it's the building of a certain status, it's the community, and I can't ever stress that enough about transmedia, how important the community is. That feeling like, even if we had total separate loves of a sports team, let's just say Aussie Rule Football. We love Aussie Rule Football. We get it at like, what is it, like 4 a.m. here?
3 or 4.
We've only seen a couple of games. It looks really exciting. But say we
were diehard. Rugby league. That's my sport, not Aussie rules.
Okay. All right. So let's say that we're diehard fans of one rugby team, and that the mortal enemies of your rugby team, and you know, politically we really don't see eye to eye, and you know, you think Australia is the best, and we think the United States is. But at the end of the day, we have this one connection of Forever Has Fallen, and we could sit there and we could talk about it at end, and that's that community that really what you're building. It's invaluable. It's invaluable. It's invaluable for investors. It's invaluable for the people that choose to subscribe and to continue on with Forever Has Fallen wherever it goes. It's invaluable for you, because that's the value that you then in turn are creating, and that's what's so exciting about it. So I know we didn't really get a lot of time to chat about that, but that definitely we needed to mention that, because
you know, and thinking about too, you know, talking about the DNA of this, how you guys are telling stories. I don't think that. I mean, the thing is too is that you can do. It's all about where is your plot being told from? You know, it's maybe one of the plots is. The main plot is being told through a book, or, you know, like a blog post that happens once a week kind of thing. There's this little thing, and it has references of things that you have to go and look for. You know,
Right.
the physical series can have the same elements, and I mean it should have the same elements because that's kind of the DNA of the story. Like you couldn't just do a straight series.
Right,
because people would be like, "What the fuck is it? This isn't Forever Social. This
Right.
isn't this is Forever Fallen. This isn't what I came to do. I want to watch something, and then I want to have a call to action after it. I want to be because you know people are going to be, and especially if you had like in a visual context, people will be pausing, taking screenshots, being like, "What the fuck is that? There's a monkey in the background. There's a monkey. You know the monkey from episode 7 of the podcast." Yeah, that monkey was right there. What does that mean? What were they talking about in both scenes?
My first experience of that was we've got in our teaser film an example of a death threat that Karl-Axel Mattiasson gets. And it was taken, we used the phone of one of the team, and she happened to have like an astronaut on there, and you can just see the boot. And I'm like, Jesus, we've got to be careful with this, like what we show, because that was a whole discussion thread. What does this mean? Like, it looks like an astronaut. Do you think it's an astronaut? I'm like, oh shit. So I'm like, guys, there's nothing there. Stop thinking about it. Don't waste any. And I'm like, wow, we've got to be really, really careful about, because it's not fun if there's red herrings and it doesn't mean anything.
Right.
So we've got to be super careful about what we show and don't show, because we don't want to frustrate people. So apologies to everyone for it doesn't mean anything. It's just a thing on that person's phone that we did the filming with. So that's all there is to it.
Yeah, right. It's so crazy. It's so crazy. And you can see it in the MCU, obviously, with people pausing and looking for stuff with, the Spider-Man No Way Home or Not Coming Home or whatever it's called. Right, where they're just like, oh, where's Tobey Maguire? Where is the other guy? I don't know.
They thought it was a deep fake of him being there. It's
crazy how it spirals out of control, but they're thriving off of it too. So I mean, it's that thing too where, as you continue to do this, you're going to start to learn more about your audience and know exactly where their eyeballs are looking to be able to put in this means something, right? And I'm going to deny it until I'm blue in the face until it actually becomes something, which is also extremely exciting. This hour has just flown by, Kim, and all of a sudden we're at like, well, it might be a little bit earlier than an hour, but it's still been a fantastic conversation. I don't know if anybody has listened to this and is not excited to go and join up and go to Forever Has Fallen to experience this season 1, to start to explore this world. I don't know what else you could possibly say, but I'm going to ask you anyways. You have your best pitch for somebody who's curious,
on the fence
about jumping in,
or wants to invest in this
project. Give us your best pitch.
Well, I can guarantee that it's unlike any other entertainment experience that's out there currently. It's very, very detailed. It's a lot of fun. There's lots of moments of delight. And we've got some really cool things coming up, particularly around NFTs and some crypto stuff coming up too. So we've got big plans around how to evolve this and how to create more of a community and give the community more to bite into and also reward the community. And I guess the other thing, we're talking about decentralization. We're not in control of our Discord channel, which might sound weird, but we decided way back to let the fans run it. So they're doing stuff on there that, I log on there and I check it out and I'm like, wow, okay, they're doing this now. That's cool. So we're very, very community based, and it's been a lot of fun to see, like on Discord and on other forums, friendships being formed and created as well between fans. So connecting people around the world, especially given what we've gone through for the last 2 years, is really, really rewarding, and giving someone, a bit of happiness and a bit of fun for a few brief moments that's mind blowing. Actually, it gives great meaning and purpose to what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what it's all about too, right? It's all about that doing something that can bring those people together. It's absolutely fantastic. The traction that you've gotten has been fantastic. I know we're excited to see where it goes. And I tell this to everybody because I actually really do believe it. Or I really do want you to use this as a resource. If we can help in any possible way, you have us at your disposal. All you have to do is reach out.
Have you got a very rich, drunk, stupid uncle who has got a lot of money?
Hey, wait. No. Hold on. Our Uncle Fred is for us, not for you. Okay? You forget we're creators too.
Yeah, come on, share the love.
We're really excited to seeing where this world goes, and excited to continue to build on this relationship. And like I said, any other way we can help. Yeah. Listen, if we had money to give, that would be like the end of the podcast application would be a lot more stringent. That's for sure.
Very difficult to get on the podcast if we had.
And at the end, it's like. And look, Uncle Fred. Kimon, look under your chair. You have $10,000. Yeah, right.
Drunk Uncle Fred will fall down the stairs and be like, "I'll give him $1 million."
And then there's like a light show.
Fine.
Yeah, right. It'd be like or we just have a gigantic wheel that we'd spin. Let's see how much Uncle Fred's giving you. All right, Kimon, who would you like to thank for being on the podcast? I'd like to thank my mother.
Oh, you owe him $100. Ooh. That's the biggest one.
That's the biggest one.
The $1 million is like a little sliver.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and you got just snake eyes all around it for 90% of it.
Yeah, between me and you, there's no stopper on that part. Yeah, right. It looks like it, but it's actually just a shadow painted on.
It's drawn on. That's the way our drunk uncle gets rich, is by every podcast guy's coming on giving him $100.
There you go. Yeah. Excellent.
All right.
Alrighty. Well, thanks again for being on the podcast, man. We're looking forward to the future conversations.
Thanks a lot, guys, and thanks a lot for your support. I sincerely really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Well, that was a fantastic conversation from another Australian creator. Now that makes 2 out of the 7. Maybe we should go and visit Australia.
It seems like we have to. They seem to have a lot of exploring to do.
Future podcast episode coming from New Zealand as well. Yeah, right, we're just loving Oceania for some reason. But that was a great conversation. I mean, some of the decentralized storyline or decentralized content for one single plot is absolutely a fantastic idea, and we're hoping that for future content for Forever Has Fallen, it's going to be fantastic. Right. Decentralized, have you guys bouncing around all over the place to figure out what the story actually is. If you like that content, we have a lot more great StoryWorlds. You can see our recommendations, perfect to match this absolute episode right here somewhere.
I think all of them are pretty good, though.
All of them are pretty good, but these are going to really match up with it. If you like Forever Has Fallen.